Today, we are going to be covering job search skills and strategies that really work. My name is Heather Austin. I am the creator and founder of ProfessorAustin.com, and I have a fabulous Facebook group, the Career Club. If you're not there yet, you might want to jump into that group. I help ambitious professionals find work they love. We have some fantastic content for you guys today. I'm going to be switching screens just a little bit. How can we streamline the job hunt? So this is our very first tip. So I'm going to give you tip number 1, and we actually have 5 tips that we're going to share with you today. So the first one is network with others in your industry. Now this is probably, I put this as step 1 because it is one of the most important parts of the job search. Now you've probably heard this saying before, but your net worth is your network. And the interesting thing is that this becomes even more true the further you go in your career. So the more senior level or the more experience you get, or the more seasoned you are, this becomes even more true. Your net worth is your network. So you want to make sure you are networking as much as possible. Now I'm going to give you some solid strategies here today to help you really make sure that you get step 1, which is network with others in your industry, nailed down. So there's 2 types of networking. We have our in-person networking and our online networking. Now tell me in the chat, are you more of an in-person networker or do you like to network online? I know a lot of us kind of have our preferences. Sometimes it might seem easier to network online, but then we get faster results if we network in person. So are you a networker that likes to network online, or do you like to network in person? Let me know in the chat. And while you're doing that, let's talk a little bit about in-person networking. So when it comes to in-person networking, there's a couple things you want to keep your eye on. You want to keep your eye on events that are happening in your industry. And this could be events that are in your local communities, in bigger cities that you live by. This could even be an event that maybe you can buy a cheap plane ticket to get to. Now, I want to give you an example of this. If you're a graphic or a web designer or anyone in the design industry, there's an organization called AIGA. It's the Professional Association for Design. They conduct events all over the country. I'm in the United States. They conduct events all over the country. And it's such a great way for designers to network. So my recommendation for you would be to find events or any type of anything that's happening in your industry that you know you can go to and start networking with those people. Now, the other part to this is career fairs. So you can always go to career fairs in your industry and find out, who's hiring. Can I start getting business cards from people? Can I start collaborating with others that might even be there? And then another thing is reaching out to industry leaders or hiring officials for organizations in your local area and asking them to out for coffee. Just, hey, do you want to grab a cup of coffee one day, or whatever that might be. It's such a great way to network. So those are kind of the ways that you can network online. The second form of networking, so we covered in person. Now let's talk about online. So I want to give you some really solid strategies that you can use when you go to network online. And again, this is to improve your job search skills, okay? So really, when we think of networking online, what platform do we think of? LinkedIn, right? So there's really 4 ways that we can use LinkedIn in a very solid fashion to expedite our job search. So one of the first things I would always recommend doing is tap into your personal network and your professional network. But those are people that you know already, maybe people you went to school with, maybe people that you've worked with in the past, maybe people you currently work with. So reaching out and connecting with those people. The second part to this online networking is to find positions that interest you. So let's say you do a job search and you find something that you think, hey, this is the perfect fit. I really want to apply for this job. Do a little bit of research and find out if you know someone that works for the company. Now that's why LinkedIn is so powerful, because you can do a lot of digging and find out if you know anyone that might work for the company. Or the other thing to look at is, do you know someone that knows someone? That's why those first, second, and third degree connections are really powerful on LinkedIn. Let those people know. If you know someone that works for the company, let them know of your interest in the position. Ask them if they can put you in touch with a hiring official or a hiring manager, or if they can pass your resume along. Referrals are a really big deal right now. In fact, I think the last statistic says that 80% of companies hire based on referral. So that's why this networking part is so, so critical. Now, the third way to our online networking is if you find a company. So let's say you find a company that you want to work for. So let's say I want to work for Apple, or I want to work for Amazon. And I know these are larger companies, but let's just say I want to work for one of these companies. What I can do is do a little bit of research to see if I know someone that works for the company. I can also follow the company page so that I can learn what their latest news is. A lot of times companies will post their job postings right up front on LinkedIn, so you'll be notified right away, and finding out really what positions they are hiring for. And then also a little tip I always like to mention is don't be afraid to engage with the company in the newsfeed on LinkedIn. So what I mean by engaging is, let's say they make a post, give the post a thumbs up. In fact, LinkedIn is releasing a new feature where you can actually have emotions. You can give it a thumbs up, you can give it a curiosity. I can't remember all the other ones, and I'm sure that that's going to be rolling out soon. But there's a lot of different things you can do to engage with the company. Commenting on the post, of course, make sure it's professional when you do that, and really just sharing your thoughts. Now, the other thing, the fourth thing when it comes to, this is the last part of our online networking, is to join groups. So let me know, are you a member of any groups, either on Facebook or on LinkedIn? Now, groups are a very, very, very powerful way to network. They are, at least for me, it's one of the ways that I've been able to make some career decisions of my own because of people that I've learned from or met inside of a group. So let me know in the chat, are you a member of any groups on either LinkedIn or on Facebook? Now, I want to share a story with you about a group. So I'm a member of a group on LinkedIn, and it was really interesting, just, participating, sharing thoughts, connecting with people. Someone popped into the group, and it was a girl, and she said, "Hey, I'm new to this industry. Would anyone be interested in, talking to me a little bit more about how I get started or some of the things you've done?" And from her one comment, she had like 5 or 6 people jump in and say, "Hey, I would love to connect with you and talk to you about how I got started." And that's 5 or 6 new connections that she has, but possibly 5 or 6 people that can put her in touch with a job that she might enjoy. Now, I don't know if you've heard this saying before, but I believe it goes something like this, that by the time we're 21 or 22, we know 1,000 people. Okay, so if each person has 1,000 people behind them that they know, think of all those connections that you can make just by simply asking a question or saying, "Hey, can you help me? I'm just getting started." And most of the time, people are very, very willing to help out. Now, I do want to add one last thing before we get to our second step of our job search, is you always want to customize your connection requests on LinkedIn. So I'm not even sure how many connection requests a day on LinkedIn, and so many of them, it's just, there's no message. They're not telling me why they want to connect. They're not telling me how they know me, or if they saw me somewhere, or whatever that might be. And in my opinion, I actually think that's not polite. I think if you're going to connect with someone on LinkedIn, give them a quick little message. Just say, "Hey, I recently discovered that you are this person. I admire your company's vision and mission. Are you okay if we connect?" And this gives you the opportunity to start a real relationship with that person. So don't just connect with anyone to connect. Make sure it's meaningful. Let's move on, and I hope you have your notebooks and your pens and pencils ready. So step 2, again, write this down, is get your resume, cover letter, and LinkedIn profile ready. Let's talk a little bit about what it means to get your resume, your cover letter, and your your LinkedIn profile ready. Now, so many times I've worked with individuals that, and normally they're contacting me after they've done this. They rush to get their resume, their LinkedIn profile ready. They submit their application, and they notice that because they rushed, there was a spelling error, their email address wasn't right, whatever it might be. And then they're reaching out to me and saying, I'm not getting interviews. I'm not getting the callbacks that I wanted. And so we start going through, well, let's start with the resume, and then let's look at your LinkedIn profile. And there's like a spelling error. There's something just super simple that we could fix, or really to jazz things up a little bit, that will make the biggest difference. So my recommendation, step 2, is get all this ready. Get your resume, cover letter, and LinkedIn profile ready before you even start applying for jobs. This eliminates some of the stress involved, and it makes it so that you're not making as many mistakes or errors in your resume. Third thing that we are going to look at is develop a 30-second pitch. So I want to know in the chat, do you have a pitch already prepared? Have you already done one? And let me know, just, was it grueling? Did you find it easy to do that? Do you feel like the 30-second pitch came natural to you? So let me know in the chat, do you have a 30-second pitch already available and ready to go? Now let me tell you, the 30-second pitch makes all the difference. And let me kind of tell you what it is in case you don't know. It's really like an elevator statement. So they use that analogy to say, hey, if you're stuck in the elevator with someone and they say, well, what do you do? Or who are you? Or whatever the question they might ask you, do you know how to respond? Like, can you tell them in 30 seconds before you get to that next floor who it is that you really are? Now, most of us probably don't have this ready because it's hard to think about unless you've taken the time and sat down to really write about it. But I'm going to just share a couple of examples with you. But before I do, the 30-second pitch, it will make all the difference in your job search because it gives you the confidence to talk about yourself. It's hard when we are going to an interview, and one of the questions, and you've probably had this before, is tell me about yourself. Well, that tell me about yourself question, it almost leaves you like, like, do you want to know my professional life? Do you want to know about my personal life? But the 30-second pitch can really help you with that question. So the key is make it align with your resume, your cover letter, and your LinkedIn profile. You want it to tell your career story. So I'm going to give you some solid steps to tell your 30-second pitch or to create your 30-second pitch. So the first thing that you want to do when it comes to your 30-second pitch is you want to identify who you are and who you help. Okay, so who you are and who you help. Now, for me, let me just give you an example of mine. I might say something like, I'm a career and business strategy coach helping working professionals find a career that brings them true happiness and fulfillment. And I could say, hey, I'm Heather Austin. and I go ahead and I tell them what I am or who I am. Then the second part to this is you want to identify why you help them. So why are you passionate about what it is that you do? Why are you doing what you do? So you're clarifying that to the individual that you're speaking with. And here's one thing that I would say. One of my greatest passions is to provide career guidance to others so that they can land their dream job and spend more time doing the things they love. So that would be my why. So that would be step 2. Step 3 to your elevator pitch is to explain what makes you so unique. What makes you so unique? So out of all the other people that they might be talking to, why are you so interesting? Why are you so special? So I could say something like, hey, well, in addition to career strategy, I help my clients explore options for starting and growing their own business. And, I could go on from there. Now, the fourth step to this is you want to include a call to action. So if you're talking with someone, you want something to happen from the conversation, maybe an exchange of business cards. Maybe you ask the person, hey, can we connect on LinkedIn? Maybe, you want to have a follow-up meeting with them. It could be anything if you have your 30-second pitch ready to go. Now, my favorite way to include some type of call to action is to ask them a question. So my question might be like, hey, is entrepreneurship something you've ever considered? and that person would talk to me back. And this turns it into a two-sided conversation. So keep that in mind. It turns it into a two-sided conversation. Now, the fifth part to our elevator statement is to practice and revise. So I know it might sound awkward, but say it out loud to yourself. Say it out loud to yourself, or say it out loud to a family member and a friend, and get some feedback from them. Like they might say, hey, that part sounds a little bit strange. Or they might say, why don't you mention that you do this? Because it's such a big part of who you are. So again, that 30-second pitch is so critical to improving your job search skills and strategies. So step 4 is to request informational interviews. Now, let me know in the chat, have you ever done an informational interview? Just give me a yes or a no. Maybe you've done one before and maybe it worked out well. Maybe it didn't work out so well. Have you ever done an informational interview? I want to tell you a quick story about when I did one, because it was actually probably a very pivotal moment for me when I was looking for a job. So years ago, when I have a daughter who's 8. I wasn't yet even pregnant with her at that time, so it must have been 10 years ago. I had my eyes set on this teaching position at a university in my area. It's a big university. And I thought, I would love to teach there. I would love it more than anything. And I thought, how can I get in the door? And I knew that I wasn't qualified. I knew I didn't have a resume that would get me through their applicant tracking system. I thought, okay, I'm gonna get in and I'm gonna ask one of the department chairs. So I approached the department I thought I could teach for, which was a computer science department. And I said, hey, can I come in and just meet with you for a couple minutes for an informational interview, just to kind of find out about you and your position and how you got to where you are? And he's like, sure, come in and meet with me. Well, we went in, we chatted for a couple minutes. It was probably maybe like 15, 20 minutes of us just chatting about the job. Well, by the time I left, he had hired me and I was teaching in the classroom a month after that. And, he later said, he's like, Heather, I just want you to know, we have people from all over the world applying to teach with this school. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And he said, there's people that are from Harvard and Stanford and MIT that really want this job. And he said, but the reason why I hired you is because you showed me the initiative and that you're willing to do what it takes to get the job done, basically, because I went in and I showed him my interest. And I would never have made it past the applicant tracking system with my resume, but I knew that there was something else I needed to do. So step 4 is to land an informational interview. And when I say land, that means you are initiating that, okay? Now, what my recommendation is for you before we get into step 5, which is our last step today, is you want to target 2 to 3 people that are doing what you want to do. Now, this could be people on LinkedIn. This could be like, for me, 10 years ago, LinkedIn was a thing. I think it came on board in 2007, but people didn't really use it like they do now. So for me, it was, I actually went to the school and asked for the informational interview. So if you can connect with people online, or you can, using LinkedIn now, which is so amazing. It wasn't a thing back when I was, looking for this new teaching job. Reach out to them and ask them if they'd be interested in doing an informational interview. And most of the time people will say yes, let's connect. I would love to give you some advice or my 2 cents. And things you can ask are, what do you like best? How did you get to where you are now? Or, what kind of advice would you give to someone that is in my shoes that wants to one day be teaching for you or be in your situation? So, okay, let's jump into our last and final step for our job search. And this is a big one if you haven't yet done this. Stay organized and follow up. Now, one of the things that can kind of get us off track is we're applying for this job and that job and this other job and this other job, and we just don't know what we've applied for, who we've heard back from, if we've done the follow-up, if we haven't done the follow-up. So my recommendation is to keep some type of spreadsheet available to you that you can track your progress. Now, here's the cool thing. Inside of World Class Career Academy, I have an entire module dedicated to the job search. And I actually include my signature job search planner and checklist that walks you through what you've done in each position. So have you followed up? Have you submitted a resume? Have you checked out the LinkedIn page? Have you contacted the hiring manager? So these are things we really want to keep track of because they give you ammunition moving into your interview. And they actually improve your chances of getting an interview because you're organized and you're following up. Now, when it comes to follow-up, after you've submitted an application, so let's say you've submitted and you haven't heard back, my recommendation is always to get in front of them again, at least like a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 3 weeks out, and asking them, hey, I've submitted my application or my resume for this position. I haven't heard back. Ask them if they have any details that they can share with you at that time to help you move forward in the process and to keep the ball rolling, basically. Now, you can do an email to the hiring official or you can do a message on LinkedIn. Now, if you don't know who the hiring official is, that's totally okay because there are resources now that will help you pinpoint or find those hiring officials on LinkedIn or even just anywhere, getting their email address and getting in front of them through email. So let's say, for example, I applied for a position at Amazon and I hadn't heard back anything. Well, if you've done some research on LinkedIn, you'll know that some positions list the hiring official. So that's a perfect way to reach out. If the position doesn't list the hiring official, what you can do is do a people search on LinkedIn and type something like hiring manager Amazon or recruiter Amazon if Amazon was the company I was applying for. And it's going to give you a list of people that you can choose from and send a message to. Now, if you don't have LinkedIn's paid version, I'm not sure if it lets you message them, but you can still connect. So this is where you would add a note to your connection request and pop that into the connection request. So it's kind of just like a backdoor method to get in touch with the recruiter or a hiring manager without actually signing up for LinkedIn's paid version. And just say, hey, I hope this email finds you well or this note finds you well. Earlier this month, I submitted my resume for this position. And if you're writing in an email, you do have more characters and you can basically write anything you want. If you're writing a LinkedIn message, you have to kind of keep it short and sweet, but reiterate your expertise for the position, let them know why you are a good fit, and let them know, hey, you can reach me here at this phone number or at this email address. I would love to move forward with this process. So this is just letting them know kind of where you are and that you're interested. So that is step 5. That is 5 steps to improve your job search skills using strategies and tactics that really work.